welcome back to Restore a Planet podcast with me, your host, Jack Cole. So today I'm joined by Giuseppe Forestieri, who is based in Oxford, and he's going to tell us a little bit about his work in the communications realm of conservation. So Giuseppe, welcome, and might want to tell us a little bit about your background, what it is you do, and yeah, we'll go from there.
Yeah, hi Jack. First of all, I wanted to thank you for inviting me to your podcast. It's a pleasure. So yeah, basically, my name is Giuseppe Forestieri, as you said, and I am the creative director of Motion Aptitude. We are a creative studio that focus our energy towards helping organizations, universities, and environmental institutions to come up with their stories and help to convey their values through compelling animated stories. Personally, I have a background in visual communication and in animation, and over the years, I basically naturally decided to combine what my background is in within the creative sector and combine that with my passion, which is nature conservation. You know, I grew up in a farm in Italy, and nature. I was surrounded by nature, and I feel this is something that is within me. So it's something I wanted to do. You know, I want to see nature flourish, and that is why I combine my creativity with my nature passion, basically, and that's why Motion Aptitude exists.
Yes, nice little start. So tell us, how have comms, tech, animation, etc., in the environmental sector, how has that changed over the past years?
I would say I would say that, you know, the way we communicate over the years has slightly changed. Because when we back in the days, we were talking about climate change and environmental crisis as something bad, you know, and even though this is the reality, we want to not only show the bad news, but we want to show also the good news, and being optimistic in that sense really helps to connect with the audience. So I would say that the narrative has changed over the years, and there is still some negativity about this way of communicating. But I believe that slowly we're getting there, and then people are starting to understand that if we try to offer actionable steps, positive solutions, then, you know, we can help the audience, we can help the people to try to overcome some of the issues about nature conservation and climate crisis.
Okay, so you work primarily in animation, did you say, to begin with, and then you moved into?
Yes, you know, at the beginning of my career, I was concentrating just being a generalist. I was working with animation and illustration just on a broad sense. But then now I help organization within nature conservation and animal welfare. So I'm now sort of like niching down and use my skills to this specific community.
Okay, and how have audiences' responses changed, or organizations' responses changed to the messaging?
I would say that the way, you know, the use of social media has changed completely the way we communicate. And for example, a lot of content produced for social media, unfortunately, has to be very short in order to grab people's attention. You know, the attention span nowadays is very short, especially on social media. We create a lot of content, for example, which is like less than 90 seconds and sometimes less than 30 seconds. So definitely, you know, people love brief and short messages. So definitely the art of summarizing is really something that nowadays it's very important in communication, because, you know, people scroll their phone very quickly, and if we are in a good position to show them something in a concise and brief way, then we can say that our job is done, and then we can grab their attention better than using a long form content, for example.
Right. And tell me about eco-anxiety and how that's played into some of your work.
Yeah, so this is strictly connected to the way we communicate, the one I was mentioning you before, because I still see a lot of content out there that's mainly focused on showing the bad news. And this is something that, you know, not all the people feel comfortable about, because if we keep bombarding the audience with bad news, then some of them might react badly. And for example, you just mentioned eco-anxiety. You know, eco-anxiety is something that over the years has grown a lot, especially among the young generation, because they're constantly bombarded about bad news and talking about the future. So definitely changing the narrative is something that I would highly suggest in order to change direction and be more optimistic about the future.
And you mentioned there that there should be more sort of like action focus and small steps, that so rather than, you know, terrible big wider picture of, you know, slightly worrying future ahead, but you can do some things about it in your own community or in your own life. What would be some of those small steps that ordinary people could take?
I would say that beside looking for the bright side, showing optimistic news, I would say that you have to inspire your audience. You know, inspiring your audience, for example, by being relatable, by adding a human touch to your story. I see a lot of the stories out there. Not all of them, but I see many stories that mainly focus on showing the stats and the numbers, you know. Whereas if we start with a story and combine and include those stats around the story, then people can relate better to the story. You know, most of the stories I see still have a cold approach in communicating, you know. Whereas if we include a story to that from beginning to end, and we can include stats and numbers which are related to climate change and nature conservation, but the story is the main part, the main starting point we should start thinking when communicating.
And can you give us a couple of specific examples of these stories that you have used to share these messages?
Yeah, so basically, when actually, I have to think about that.
That's okay, take a moment. There's no no pressure.
So
there's some recent work that you showed us in your webinar, which was, I think, a good example.
Yes, it was the eco-anxiety one. Yeah. So basically, that one was a project that started for with AW Group. So they wanted to highlight, you know, to translate the bad news into something valuable. In that case, we basically turned something which was negative into something good, and how to channel those feelings of eco-anxiety into something that people can do actionable steps and overcome those issues. So again, we want to start and showcase a main character, a story. The character has a problem, and then throughout his journey or her journey, there is a solution to that problem. So it's always a matter of starting and finishing. In the middle, there is a solution for that problem. So that is a good example, actually, that suits very well with your question. Yeah, so another example would be, for example, we recently worked on a project for the British Ecological Society, you know, and where organizations like that come to us and ask for help. Most of the times they want a report, you know, they want to publish a report. So they want want an engaging and nice way to present the report to the public. So when there is, the work behind the report is massive. So there's a lot of research in the background. So our job is to translate that massive information into something which is digestible for the audience, especially on social media. I mentioned to you before about the art of summarizing, to make something that's, a long form content into something short that really grabs people's attention. So our job is really to simplify the complex to visuals, visual and attractive narratives that resonate with people.
Good. So if someone was just starting out, trying to convey a positive message, perhaps as you've just mentioned there, taking some complex ideas and simplifying them to a digestible level for an audience, what might be some initial tips or guidance that you'd give to someone for putting together an effective message?
Yes. So first of all, I would say that you have to concentrate. You have to basically start with research, and finding, what others in your field done, to have a broader picture and see how others have approached the same problem, how others have created a campaign, for example. When we, organization come to us, we always ask, do you have like a reference or something that you've seen in the past that you would like to, to use as a reference? Because even though you don't want to copy what others have done, but it's always a good starting point to see what you liked about that and analyze with us what is the best, what would be the best approach to start with. So I would say research is the first point to start with, and also the next step will be to speak to us about the target audience. Who are they trying to talk to? Are they trying to talk to a young audience? Are they talk just like a general audience? And what I would say, what sort of like are you going to launch a video on social media, or is going to be for a live conference? This is very important, and the way you approach the story changes depending on how you're going to communicate your story and where you're going to communicate it. Because I would say that, analyzing this aspect also helps the people you're working with, in our case, us, to find the best solution for your problem. When I say problem, is mainly because in the design and creative sector, we use the term problem because it's something we want to overcome and to best present ideas to the client.
What are some things best avoided? What should people not do?
Sorry, say again?
So what are things people should not do? What are some pitfalls or mistakes that some people might make in their messaging?
I would say one of the things that you should not do is copy someone else's message. You can use as a reference. You can, because even, for example, us, we don't come from a conservation background. So we always, try to learn new things and read a lot of books and blogs about conservation, because we want to enter into this world and try to find a solution to overcome the problems within this community. So I would say you always have to go and look for what others have done and use this to create your own voice.
So to be authentic.
Exactly, to be authentic.
Good. And finally, Giuseppe, how do you see things, or how would you like to see things trending over the coming years in your area of comms, and how can you see things changing as time progresses?
Yeah. So I would say in the creative sector, I see many people nowadays trying to niche it down to a specific sector. You know, as we did, we started at the beginning beginning of my career. I was just doing like I was a generalist. I was focusing on animation and communication just in general. And over the years, I decided to niche down to this specific sector. So I would say that the future would be more in the way people we use creativity will be more focused on a specific sector, because that will make them expert of that specific sector. So definitely niching down is a trend that I see this more and more over the coming years as well.
Brilliant. Finding your niche. And finally, Giuseppe, where can people find your work and follow you, and perhaps,
Yeah,
wish you some,
I'm happy to connect with people on LinkedIn. They can find me on LinkedIn, or they can visit the website motionaptitude.com, where they can find our work and what we do. So we always open to connect with others. I would say mainly to learn. When I first contact you and I saw what you were doing, your podcast, I was always intrigued. About what you come up with. I was listening to your podcast and I was interested in knowing other people's perspective. So definitely connecting is something I'm always keen and open to do.
Brilliant. Thank you, Giuseppe.